Any of y'all heard the expression, hangry? That's the letter H on the front of the word angry. Hangry. It's that crankiness people get when they need to eat something. Their hunger makes them angry, so hangry. We recognize that in kids pretty easily. When we got a cranky little one, give them a snack, they're suddenly better. Works for grown-ups too. And in recovery circles, we learn HALT, H-A-L-T, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. These are warning signs because any one of those alone can cause problems, but a combination of any two or more of those can be, to some, deadly. And so we watch out for it, for ourselves and one another, and take a moment to rest, to eat, and to reach out to others for support. Hangry. The hunger that sparks anger. And most of the time, we mean hangry in terms of physical hunger, the need for nourishment for the body. We have Bitmojis and Twitter shorthand, and it's real. But there's a hunger that's far too real for so many. This morning, as we embark upon the season of gratitude and of harvest, we pause a moment to consider the realities of hunger and want in this world we know as plenty. We do this each year at this time. Now, always in preparation for this service, I study the latest statistics available to us regarding hunger and need in the world. I must tell you that while the facts on who goes hungry in our world and where do change, they don't change enough. More than 20 years ago, when the number of hungry people in the world had climbed to nearly 1 billion. 1 billion. The World Food Summit was called, amongst the nations of the world, the nations of plenty. And we set a goal for reducing hunger across the world by half by the year 2015. Now you'll notice it's 2018. And we have yet to even reach 25%. Now, we are very grateful that there are 200 million less people in the world hungry today. That leaves nearly 800 million to go. With the development of modern farming techniques, weather forecasting, and food preservation strategies, the rate of global food production has increased faster than the rate of population, decade over decade. So today we produce enough food on this planet this morning to feed 10 billion people. That feeds every hungry person this morning 1.5 times over. Not just a portion. They get to come back 1.5 times over. So how is it this morning that 1 in 9 people will go hungry on this planet today? Well, one reason is that in this country, the bulk of industrial produced grain crops goes to biofuels and confined animal feedlots. That means that grains that could be distributed to people as nourishment instead go into my car as ethanol or to feed beef, poultry, and pork production for meat consumption. And so you see, we prioritize feeding our automobiles and our livestock more than our neighbors. You can Google world hunger for lots of statistics and studies on this. There's lots. We study it a lot. Just don't fix it. But we can use this gathering this morning to demonstrate what these statistics look like in real time, in real life, with real people. On this planet today, 15% of all people, 15% will have a sumptuous meal of their favorite foods will have the luxury of saying, oh, no, I don't like that. I'll have this. 15%. The next 35% in the middle will eat a simple meal of beans and rice, and if they're lucky, a portion of bread. The next 50% of people on our planet, the majority, will wait in line for a small portion of rice and water. 50%, half the people on this planet. Of the 795 million going hungry this morning, we know the majority are in developing countries or along the waves of refugees fleeing violence and destruction in their homelands. But more than 41 million live right here in these United States. More than 3 million right here in the state of Florida. 1.1 million of them in Florida are children. And nearly 3/4 million this morning between Broward and Dade counties alone. One in 6 Americans today will be food insecure. 1 in 5 children. 1 in 6 senior citizens. We talk about the children a lot. Senior citizens are also food insecure. Even though we already grow enough food for 10 billion people. So we're going to experience what those numbers might mean right here this morning in our hunger communion. In our hunger communion this morning, could you help me here? In our hunger communion this morning, we will share a single loaf of bread. Single loaf of challah. This bread represents all the food in the world that's available for people for nourishment. While we in this room are going to represent all of the people in this world. All of the men, women, and children on our abundant earth that could easily feed all of her people if only we would. Envision the statistics this way. All of you over here, you are hungry all the time. You go to bed hungry, you wake up hungry, you're hungry all day, every day of your life, because you never have enough to eat. Most of you on this side are, in fact, children, because the majority of truly hungry people in the world do not live to grow up to be adults. So deep is the famine, because their bodies can never go strong enough to survive. Now you over here, you have more of the earth's abundance. You will live longer, but most of you combined don't have as much as the people in the front rows. People in the front rows often sit at tables where there is more than we can even eat. In the United States of America, we throw out 50% of our food. In this hunger communion, this one allotment of bread represents the very bread of life for all the world, and we will share it. So here's how we're going to do it. Look around the congregation. Go ahead, look around. Notice how many are here. Now, as the bread is passed, each of us will tear off a piece and pass it on. We'll take just enough to ensure that we have some, but that others in the room also have some. When you've taken stock of the room and what you think might be your share, take it and go ahead to the next person. Now, I know some of you might feel distressed at eating a piece of bread that other people have touched. In fact, you folks in the back may have been reconsidering where you sat this morning. But that distracts us from the point. So both halves of this loaf will be wrapped in a cloth, so you can hold onto the cloth as you take your piece. If you still are not inclined to consume it, just hang on to it, and we'll collect it at the end, and I will take it home and feed it to different animals in our neighborhood. This way we keep in mind the hungry critters that also live amongst us as we overtake their habitat, as we crowd them out of their natural homes. There's one more thing. Don't cheat. What would I mean by that? I mean, do not pass on the bread altogether. Because there are so many of you in this room who are so big-hearted and so generous and so kind that you, knowing that you have plenty, knowing that you've got lunch planned, might skip taking your portion to pass it on to be sure that others have enough. Don't do that today. Because you don't represent only you. You are standing in for people in this world who are hungry, and you cannot deny them the right to their portion, even if you might be inclined. You must take enough that they might eat, and leave enough that others might eat as well. And don't forget that if we would do this work of healing the world, we must be healthy and strong enough to do that work. Love your neighbor as yourself means you have to love yourself. Some of us might be loving our neighbors right poorly if we love them as well as we care for ourselves. As we share this bread of life, remember also another kind of hunger in the world and in ourselves. A hunger of the spirit. A hunger of the heart. A hollow place inside fears there might not be enough. Enough joy, enough kindness, enough hope, enough love, enough strength, enough time to go around. Many people this morning are so deeply hungry for some sense that they are cared for some way to make sense of their lives in a world that seems to have lost its mind and its soul. If you're one of them, know that you are not alone. And if you are actually feeling okay right now, then be mindful that there are those among us who aren't, and seek to be nourishment for them as well. So as we share this bread, we will hold in our hearts those who hunger in body and in spirit, those who do not have enough. We will remember those who work to ease that hunger, the volunteers who give their time, and the politicians and world leaders who have the power to wipe hunger from the face of the planet if they would, and we who hold that power right here in our community this morning. If only we would do our part to share the bread of life. Will our young basket carriers please come forward? This morning we took a portion and we gave a portion that others might become whole. Now about that expression, hangry. To be angry because we're hungry. You know, we do okay at being patient with people who just need a snack. People who need to pause for a minute to eat a little something and feel better. Heck, I know some of you have a protein bar in your bag. For yourself or for someone else who might you discover in need. But I wonder how patient we are with people who may be spiritually hangry around us. We're angry because they're hungry in spirit. Could it be the uptick in vitriol and violence in our world right now comes of spiritual hunger? And what might we carry with us to help that? Does it occur to us that someone who's cross and cranky with us just might be hungry for a little kindness, a bit of compassion, a dose of patience, or even just someone to hold still for a minute and be with them and listen for a moment? Can we think of the hatred in this world as a symptom of spiritual starvation? Hunger that cannot be appeased with a protein bar. How do we answer that? We already know hatred never ceases by hatred. The wise ones have been teaching this every generation, thousands of years. Only the way of love, they teach us. Only living the way of love can appease this kind of hunger. And that goes for ourselves too, because when we find ourselves cross and cranky or tempted to hate, perhaps we too need to halt and take in food for our souls. It can be as simple as stopping to look at the sky, or smell the flower, or listen to the sounds of life all around us. It can be reading a poem or writing a note. It can be calling someone who just keeps crossing our mind, or actually answering the phone when it rings from a friend, when we'd rather let it go to voicemail because we feel crummy. Answer it. It can be sitting down with someone with whom we are inclined to be angry and just listen. Sometimes, perhaps what we really need is to remember that there really is enough. There really is enough for ourselves and for everyone, if only we would make it our mission to feed our neighbors here and the world over, body and soul. As we ponder these things and our part in it, in learning the way of love,